Hello there, Escape Studios. My name is Bradley G. Munkowitz. I am a graphic designer living in San Francisco, California. Um, I'm going to be talking to you tonight for an unspecified amount of time about design, design direction, execution, concept, form, function, and even going to throw in some kind of theoretical at the end. And I don't know, I'm just going to take you on a kind of, I'm not really, me personally, I'm not really a VFX artist. I'm a graphic designer. Um, but I want to talk to you as a VFX artist tonight. And so a majority of the talk will be about the holographic work done in Tron Legacy, which I think has the most kind of VFX centric insight to it. But we'll also talk about just design in general, diversity, live action, um, lights, projections, dance, op art. I'll probably go on some tangents about probably many different things, hopefully not too many. I'm not drinking during this one. I did a Gnomon masterclass and I was drinking, and it made for a lot of rants, but I'm not drinking in this one. I am just going to keep it straight. Just no drinking. There's a lot of THC involved, but no drinking. Anyway, start out. I'm just a little bit about myself, just so you know who you're listening to. Just so you're not just like, who is this? This guy's not even a designer or something. You could be thinking that, you could be thinking that. But anyway, so did website design out of college. I was a film and graphic design major out of school. Went to London. First job was out of London and was an interactive designer. These are all like personal websites, but just kind of stressed there's a lot of interface and pixel detail in this. Very very inspired by Designers Republic, and the Attic, and kind of that was probably my two biggest inspirations back then. And then kind of always loved to include toys and iconic things in the design work that I did, and that's kind of something you'll see throughout. But I always feel it's important to kind of have a flavor, have kind of a flavor, Got into techie kind of explodey 3D, and then kind of went into the motion graphics world and did a lot of different looks and styles. Just a lot of different looks and styles, character design, live action, type, op art. Op art's rad. More on that later. Op art's good. This isn't op art, but this is like in that vibe. I think this is. And also did a lot of traditional graphic design work, infographics. Yeah, infographics, man, graphic design, grids. Met Joseph Kosinski at a conference in Toronto. We were on the same panel talking about something design or the similar. I don't know what that actual panel was about. I don't remember. It was like 2009, I think. Anyway, collaborated with Joe on a Hummer commercial. Did the UI. He did the live action out of digital, live action and lots of CG out of Digital Domain. So, me going into Digital Domain and working on the spot introduced me to a lot of people who were then collaborators on Tron Legacy. And so, same scenario, built a dream team of pimps, black ninjas all the way. We got a little bit, we got some Jake Sargent, Emanate Studios. We got David Lewandowski, Maniac, handsome Maniac, probably one of the best Cinema 4D artists in the world. I would say. I mean, he's fucking gnarly. Mr. Sargent is a very talented graphic designer and photographer. Josh Nimoy, dude with the glasses in his mouth. Nimoy is a mad genius Open Frameworks programmer. I'll talk a lot about his work. I mean, I'll talk a lot about all of the work, really. It was a really impressive output for a team of 5. And basically, we dropped into Digital Domain like a bunch of black ninjas and plopped down and just made graphic design and animation work, and then just pumped it through the DD pipeline. And so using the connections from obviously Kosinski, but Eric Barbara, VFX supervisor, Digital Domain, we were familiar with each other, and so it made for a pretty easy process doing that work at Digital Domain. First thing of that work I want to talk about is the disc game Quartz, and basically how this was executed was design and animation put onto textures in simple geometry in the 3D scene, and then rendered out of V-Ray and comped in Nuke with through DD pipeline. But the majority of the work we did was just for flat textures that were then wrapped around 3D geometry, simple 3D geometry, and just kind of synchronized the layers. And it was nice that there was a hologram that lit the whole arena, or like the whole disc court was based on a graphic, which was kind of a neat thing to have a graphic be such a prominent role in the lighting and kind of the stylization of the courts. Referencing, I'm going to talk a lot about this throughout the talk, really, is reference, and just kind of, reference is always done first. You study your task. You create large libraries of reference material that you always look at. I mean, this is like for anything in VFX, but reference is everything, and is absolutely everything. And there'll be more on that later, but there's much more on that later. Anyway, the reference we were looking at for this game was all about how the courts would form and and derez off with these really interesting arc shapes in the middle of each court, and just love the way they moved. Just really, really nice movement to them, and layers of them, and they were just really prominent and strong, and kind of were the foundation of the court themselves. And so really was into that, and then also just was really studying the aesthetic of the movie, of the OG, of the original Tron, which was just so fucking rad. Just so cool and so ahead of its time in terms of the design and the detail and the execution of that design, and how they put this whole film together is just so legit, so legit, and really beautiful. And so studied all that, the line work, the shapes, the language, the aesthetic, and sought to modernize it ever so slightly. I mean, really wanted to pay homage to the original design. Also started thinking about, always looking at infographics, but starting to think about this circular shape, this circular volume, and and just what happens, combining circles and overlapping shapes and form, and just kind of really getting into thinking of the perspectives and the volume that the graphics will occupy, and then looking at some Feltron, getting some type on, getting some type on. We were actually required to use the NCOM font, which was the kind of Tron font that you see here. It's pretty brutal. It's actually okay for the numbers. It's very Tron, but it's it's a look. It's a look, and so it is what it is, dude. I mean, he's got to make the design work out of that, and think, pay homage, as I was talking about, and kind of making the design a little bit bigger and bulkier, and kind of the treatment of it. And this is the design for the brackets, and so you can see NCOM in full effect, and a lot of detail that we put into it underneath. Kind of have this current running through it of dots and lines, kind of a foundation. This is kind of sketches of figuring out what the brackets look like. Thought it was important to kind of have the top and the bottom slide on each other, and to kind of update the brackets from 8 matches to 4. So the way the transition happens is they kind of slide on top of each other. And getting some lasers going on here, getting some lasers resin this thing on and releasing kind of matrix data, off the top of it, kind of fizz it out. We got some HUDs rolling around in front of the thing, sliding on an outside track, getting a little parallax, some gameplay going on here, some schematics, getting down with some disc game. And probably the most important part of the sequence was when the Quartz form for the first time. And, that's where the arc language comes into play here. And really kind of have this really beautiful bloom happen to kind of res on the Quartz. And the arc shapes were actually made with a, here's the whole sequence actually, the arc shape forms in this really nice angle and then snap to the wide, and the Quartz fill in and kind of cascades around. But the arc shapes, I think, were at the foundation of this design. Was they kind of drove it, and so yeah, these things would kind of snap out, and actually made these arc shapes in open frameworks. Mr. Nimoy got down with his bad self here and kind of gave us this really beautiful interface for doing a very specific task. And so we got a lot of variety out of this thing, and just a lot of really iterative shapes. And you'll see in the montage, and I'll talk more about this, but I think the whole team got down with this really highly iterative setups. And so I think Nimoy started with the open frameworks apps, and then the CG, Lewandowski and Swaby got a little competitive and kind of wanted to prove that their software was the superior one to custom written applications. And I mean, at the end of the day, watching these three entities kind of do that, I mean, everybody wins really. GFUNK wins, because it's all three are epic in their own way. I mean, everybody who was on this team was really operating at a pretty inspired clip, and we all kind of made some rad shit. So this is a montage edit of a lot of the work. So you see here all of the arc shapes, and just how many different variations could easily be made, and how it drives the formation of the Quartz. So you see there blooming. Here come the Quartz. Here come the Quartz. Oh yeah, sweet. And some other views. What else we got in this thing? I don't want to just sit here. Some more processing. More processing action here. Kind of bringing on names in an interesting way. Let's see some. There's lots of stuff. Here's the original idea. We love the little data around here and here, but that got minimized. But it was cool. It started reflecting everything, but it was it's cool for the wides. Here's some Egyptian, you know what I'm saying? All right. Next sequence I want to talk about is the Solar Sailor, and this was beefy. This was beef time here, because this is about a 2.5 minute sequence, and a very important part of the movie. Well, not a very important part of the movie, but it's definitely the most important hologram in the movie for our role, because it's telling a lot of story. And what it's doing is he's working through basically Cora, who's the lady down on the bottom there, is working through her code to basically find her DNA, which is right here, and to extract the damage code, which is the orange stuff. And so that's kind of the story point on this, was working through all those layers of code to get to the DNA, to get to the damage code so he can save her. These were tricky shots to do, just right down in her. And he plucks the DNA out. He plucks the bad code out, See that shit? Yeah, pluck it. It turns into a flower, which I will talk about in a bit. He floats the flower away. He heals it by blowing on it. Sweet. Heals on that. Shiny. And all is good in the world. Oh, that's rad. Look at that. Isn't that pretty, man? We had nothing to do with that. That was all digital domain, but it's nice, man. A little bit of Egyptian in there. A little bit of Egyptian going on there. They use that to like drive their stuff, dude. So that Egyptian shit I showed you, I think it's in there, man. Know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So let's talk about this sequence a little bit. So we have a holographic head representation that we kind of concept out. Ended up going with a more like just kind of all particle based one, but we're kind of thinking more structural at the beginning of it. This is where stuff gets fun. This is the outer regions of the code called the Hex Fear. The Hex Fear had a bunch of different layers. Here's some early sketches of the Hex Fear. Kind of a rigid outer shell and a very organic kind of inner heart. Yeah, it was really fun to make. Lots of Cinema 4D going on in this mofo. And yeah, dude, lots of iterations, lots of studying, lots of goodness. You know, thinking about is this thing a solid shape or is it, completely holographic? Kind of Epcot Center style going on right here. And the contour heart, which was the inner workings of the heart, was actually designed in open frameworks. I'll talk more about that. Really, really beautiful stuff. Here's a good look at it. These are different kind of renders out of the app itself. Very iterative, very, very powerful. Here's a shot of the app. Really, really sick shit going on in this app. Really, really, really gnarly. We actually, in order to create all of the open framework stuff, we had to port it to Houdini. So Nimoy would give all of his code to the Houdini artist, who then just ported the code over into Houdini's language, which was pretty close, and really pretty rad solution. Wasn't entirely smooth getting to that solution, but it was a pretty sweet solution to get this through the DD pipeline into Houdini, rendering out with depth of field and motion blur, and being a production ready tool, and pretty sick shit going on. Some more shots of kind of when he finds his way in through the layers of the Hex Fear into the code, and kind of looking at the contour heart. Kind of wanted to be able to freeze the contour heart, so we're thinking about wrapping this kind of Veroni mesh around the heart itself to kind of freeze it. And so started thinking about that, and was also thinking about taking the contour heart and kind of flaying it out, kind of hammock style, I guess, kind of weird, but ended up going with kind of that Veroni noise thing. Here's a shot of the DNA, which we actually made in Houdini. Early sketches of it were kind of weird. Were kind of like look like corn, kind of like data corn, and just weird. Second mock-up of it went with more of like a kind of branchy tree thing, and then we kind of reined that into a more traditional DNA design, with kind of some teched out flavor to it. Some more shots of him plucking. Here's the flower. Some other flower designs. The flower was a tough one to kind of swallow. Just isn't really that tough, You want it to be tough. You just want it to be tough, Really tough. Here's some reference. Let's talk about reference. Initial reference was Ernst Haeckel. And so checking out Ernst Haeckel, who's just amazing drawings, is like the perfect reference for any sort of like UI stuff. It's just like so rad and just layered and organic, and but then has this like kind of data fiber, kind of texture vibe to it. that lends itself to great tech. Man, I didn't clean out these slides very good. And here's just more reference. This was actually the reference for Contour Heart. Was actually like an architectural drawing. Really beautiful, really beautiful. I mean, you could see here kind of where that inspiration came from, was kind of this echoing inward behavior. And working with Nimoy is just such a guy's so fucking smart, man. And thinking about inwards, here's some Veroni noise, and thinking about kind of noise wrapping around an object, kind of frees the Contour Heart. And let's look at some sculpture. This was kind of initial reference for the data DNA, the vibe in that. Kind of tissue fibrous action going on, and yeah, there's a lot of reference for that. Here's a montage of it, and this is kind of an inner look at the process, how we got to it, the tests we were doing. There's just a lot of process that goes into this, how the things are forming, design details. Here's Contour Heart here, just so you can I wasn't kidding, man. The Contour Heart was really sweet. There'll be more of that. There's some Cinema 4D, thinking about the formation of things, particle heads. This is kind of how we were eating away at the Hex Fear shell, dissipating. More Hex Fear. Cool little spires coming out. I mean, you can definitely see where the Ernst Haeckel vibes were in there. Here's the early tests of that, and kind of had this really beautiful layering and just had a nice glints, and that's the Contour Heart there. Pour it over. So here's some more Contour Heart stuff. I think this is like I mean, God, I can't do this justice, but I think it's like a spherical voxel volume, and then it just kind of gets eaten away at and it echoes inward. But I mean, you can see these are all renders from the same app, so there's a lot of things that could be done. Really, I mean, we gotta release it, man. People will make the cooler with it. Just open source it, you know what I mean? Just give it away. Don't do it. Nimoy would be down, actually. I think Digital Domain owns it. Maybe Disney, but I don't know. I don't think no one will give it. Alright, you get the idea. Here's some DNA process, early weird corn tests. Just how this all happened. Flowers. Yeah, we're ready to move on. Sweet. Okay. I'm going to talk about one more section of Tron. I'm getting kind of bored of Tron. I'm going to do one more section, and I'm going to skip the opening titles, and we're just going to move on. So I'll come out of keynote. The last thing I want to talk about Tron was visually one of the most stunning, I think, just from in terms of just detail. And basically the brief was to do a defragmentation of Flynn's disk into like this rectifier and extract all the data out of it. And so started studying some defragmentation diagrams. I'm going to begin with reference and then kind of introduce the work we did second. We'll go out of order a little bit. Hold on, I'm going to quench my thirst. Oh, man. It's hard sometimes just talking at 1 in the morning. You're all cottonmouth and kind of blasted, but you just got to do it. You just got to do it. Get into it. I'm into it. We're into this all the way, dude. This is a full clip going all the way through. All right. So here we just what was I talking about? We're talking about defragmentation diagrams and looking at infographics and thinking about how these kind of defrag regions can wrap around a sphere or a circle. And kind of what that ring design would look like. Can I see my mouse? You can't see my mouse. No. Kind of these were the two main references, I think, for this. It's just how does data wrap around, form irregular shapes and form. And, That's it. These are early style frames for it. Kind of small, but you kind of see what's happening here is like data arranging into these rings, and just this kind of set the foundation, especially the innermost ring. Kind of set the foundation of what this was going to look like, and then bringing it into Cinema 4D, Lewandowski going at it, and coming up with all these forms to kind of come at camera. Here's a good shot of it. Is just these things blasting out and kind of overlapping each other and forming these kind of solid white regions in it. I mean, it's just so yummy. It's just a lot of detail using 3D to make graphics, and it's just it's just good shit. Very dense, very detailed. Some other stuff from the sequence was kind of like this video player visualizer, kind of particle cloud thing. Could have been a little bit better, I think, but here's kind of what the video footage had done to it. Was kind of being decomposed using another Open Frameworks app, which kind of like would take all the pixel values and explode it. And some of the graphic design. Here's our montage of the work. I kind of want to fast forward through this, which is the video player, which is okay, but I want to show you the cool shit, which is the rings. The rings are here. Here, we can start with the rings. This shit's rad. So this is kind of the data representation, and it's just really a lot of detail, and using cloner objects in Cinema 4D, Lewandowski in full spaz mode going on here. It's really a lot of juice. It's a lot of juice, and I don't know. I mean, this was all actually rendered right out of Cinema 4D using V-Ray with depth of field, and then actually I think that's the case, and then into Nuke for compositing. So this is just Cinema 4D right into the pipeline, so Cinema 4D being used as the primary renderer, which is cool. For Maxon, they definitely got into it. I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna skip this shit, dude. We're gonna jump in to this because I'm bored of Tron and I want to move on. And so and I now want to talk about diversity. And so working on Tron for like a year and a half was kind of brutal. I mean, in terms of style, like, it was great, but it was like stylistically one thing and one execution and one medium for like a year and a half. And so I think it's important to, when you do something for a while, to like try to reinvent yourself a little bit in your next endeavor. And I think the way you think about projects is that each project you do is the best work you've ever done. And I feel really strongly about that. Like, that's the best way to motivate yourself, is to just really try to one up yourself each time. And sometimes if you want to take a money gig and check out a little bit, but I think for the most part you don't do that, and you just try to make better work each time you do something. And I think that's the way to be. And so for me, the next thing I did after Tron, or closely after it, is jumping into film and filming dancers and making kind of a narrative about this, about kind of someone restoring his creativity and kind of going through this adventure, and encountering three different what did we call these girls? They had special names. Seductress, I think it was a seductress. And basically each one represents a part of his psyche, part of his like design sensibility, if you will. And so this one represents kind of his hesitation and his fear and insecurities as an artist. And so you can see that she just kind of dominates him, and he kind of submits to her. And I think this represents kind of, as a designer, when you don't have the confidence to go forward with something that you believe in, this is kind of what that represents. And so he finally kind of, this is kind of Christmas Carol-y, I'll admit. It's kind of like the one visits him, it's kind of the past and the present and the future. So that the present is now coming up. I'm doing the worst job explaining this shit, but the present's coming up, and the present represents the gazelles. The first one was the Reaper. These are gazelles. Gazelles represent kind of the back and forth of the design process. And so there's two of them kind of representing just taking your directions in multiple, taking your creative in multiple directions and being pushed and pulled, and kind of you're kind of in a rhythm, and the things are speeding up for you, but you still don't know which way to go, and you're just kind of trying to figure it out and learn. And so that's what kind of this is about. And it's so fun to do, man. I love dancers too. And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. So they get down with him, they come and leave, and then the third one is his. This is his creative muse. This is taking an idea and running with it, and being confident in it, and standing tall with it, and just being into it. It's kind of skipping because I'm screen recording, but this is just victory, And so we got this badass gnarly redhead called the Fireball, and she just kind of rolls in, and he's got confidence, and he's kind of standing up to her, and they're kind of together and collaborating and unified as one, and that's kind of when your creative vision, you're pushing forward with it, and feeling good about it. And what I didn't talk about this whole time is, like, at the beginning of the piece, his vision is completely black, and he can't see, and he's kind of blinded by, he's just kind of in a cloud. He's not really thinking clearly, and he's not really confident, and kind of that's this part. And then his eyes actually, when he looks up, this is all done practical, there's no post in this, but when he looks up for that first time, you can see some of the black start to drain out, and then by the time he sees them, there's more black draining out, and then by the time it's over and he's kind of gets down with the Fireball here, you could see the black is basically pouring out of his eyes, and his vision is restored. And so here's him taking her over, and then, "It was all a dream, my boy. Wake up from all this. Oh, look, your eyes are clear. Oh, so beautiful." And that's it. So the thing that's interesting about this piece is that the lights that you saw, and I haven't talked a second about that, I just talked mostly about the creative, but the lights that were above the dancers were actually driven by this graphic texture. Now this is the jam. This is kind of, you're in hologram world, and you're doing one thing, and you're kind of dealing in light, and then you kind of come to this, and you're like, wait a minute, I want to control a 13-foot by 13-foot light array with the same graphics, and then film it. And that's kind of what this piece was. It's like going back to it, that's what the piece is about, is this light texture, and that's defining the color of each dance number. It's directing where the action goes. And so you'll see here, whoa, what just happened? Go. So in talking about this, why can't I fucking... There we go. So you'll see here that, like, when I'm talking about the blue sections here, and this is just what the lights were doing for that whole section. The purple actually didn't really come through very well on shoot time. It just kind of all was blue, but there's a lot of stuff going on here, man. I actually think I might recycle this for something else. But and you'll see here's the Fireball, where he was dancing with the Fireball, and it's fun when you're filming it and you kind of recognize the patterns coming through. And well, like I said, a 13 by 13 light array. Met these kids. Sorry to call you a kid, Michael. I'm sorry, but you're a kid. Such a smart kid. But met these guys, met these kids, called Embrace the Void at the time, and very talented lighting designers, straight out of school, straight out of Loyola Marymount. There's Kyle and Michael. Love these guys, dude. And we basically collaborated with them and built this lighting setup, and it was controlled by all this different software that they had, all of the M-Box, and then I don't know exactly what they used to map the lights to the thing, but we got down building this thing, and it was kind of crazy, actually. The whole fucking thing was kind of crazy, very indie, and kind of hectic, and didn't always work, and people were freaking out, and we were all like, oh my god, and here's some slow-mo. Just so you can see how rad I can get here, and just moving around and looking like a. There you go, dude. Bam. What's up? Oh yeah. Oh shit. Oh, power hump. Oh man, fix the slide. Here's a look kind of process when things are figuring it out. Play bar up there, and things are all ghetto, but I just love kind of seeing this kind of footage when it's not polished. It's just kind of whatever. And here's a blooper, kind of silly reel from this. Just kids having fun, really. Just kids having fun. Good song, actually. It's a song. I don't really have anything to say about this except the DP can jump really high. And I got some dance moves, I guess, a little bit. Playing out this like kind of slow shutter thing. Use that a lot during the gazelles, the slow shutter. More power humps. And rabbits. Some rabbits, dude. And some more slow-mo. Alright, so I just want to show you, after seeing all that Flash on the Beach work, I just wanted to show you kind of the mood board again, and just kind of explain what I was studying. I was studying form. I was studying the human form, lit dramatically. I love this idea of this man alone, so sitting on the chair. I love the idea of seeing his vision kind of spherized, which is that Chicago sign, and kind of like looking, there's a lot of POV shots of his that I kind of spherized. I wanted to shoot those with the fisheye, but they just didn't work. They didn't look as good. There's a couple of shots in there, but overall it didn't work as well. I was studying a lot of like Massive Attack, like LED arrays, which was kind of the chief inspiration for the lights. What kind of shapes those lights kind of would create on the floor is kind of the bottom left imagery, and then the bottom right imagery is an amazing interactive piece by Hi-Res that they did for Hyundai, where they have a light array and you kind of can control it with your motions and stuff, which is a huge inspiration for this piece, for this Flash on the Beach piece. Moving on, I want to talk about another kind of performance piece that I directed in 2012, so last year, using a Kinect and custom content for the projector, and then filmed, obviously on the usual, the Arri Alexa. Had a Scarlett out there as well. But the interesting thing about this is basically we created really simple graphic patterns, but then the Kinect kind of looks at the dancer, generates a matte out of him using its motion tracking, and then that matte then mats out the light in the projector, and so you get this like really interesting kind of double shadow, if you will. You get a black shadow from the light being cast from the dancer, and then you get a light shadow behind the actual black shadow of the dancer's movement, kind of slightly offset because it's a Kinect track. So it's a pretty cool canvas that we had to work with, and kind of made this like super trippy kind of space voyage. Got down with like lasers and smoke machines, of course, and was using a VJ software to kind of control all the graphics and stuff. But you'll see here is the piece. The one thing that I think kind of caught everything closer up, and filmed most of it at high speed as well, at 60 frames a second. So it kind of loses, you kind of lose the track, the graphic track of the performer when it's kind of all high speed like this. But it has its advantages and disadvantages. Looking back on this, I wish I would have kind of gotten a little bit of both and kind of sped up the footage so you can actually see the movements being mimicked. But the reason I'm showing you this is just, you experiment with one thing with, dance and light arrays, and you meet people that do things different from what you do and are complementary to your skills, and you collaborate and create things that you normally wouldn't create on your own. And so that's kind of the moral of the story for the for the Flash on the Beach piece, and also this semi-permanent piece, is that is just kind of going outside your comfort zone sometimes and making films and telling stories and shooting and just it doesn't always have to be on the computer. It's good to make, it's good to film, and tell stories. And so I think as a graphic designer, I think my work is personally always informed by graphic and kind of hyper stylization and kind of that world. But I think that being diverse is really important. So kind of playing with different things. This is kind of a batch of work that I'll talk about, which is kind of more in my comfort zone, I guess. This is very techie work done for a Sony campaign that was then pumped through a moving picture company, which is kind of very similar to Digital Domain, very high-end VFX house. So I was a graphic designer and design director with two other guys. One was a Cinema 4D animator named Navarro Parker, and the other was the Chanimal. Chanimal needs no description. He is just the Chanimal. But he was a UI animator and just all-around good vibe kind of guy, that Chanimal. And so this is the actual spot. And then want to talk about some of the design work done in this. We did some the whole thing of the spot is basically there's an intruder and there's a infrared image taken of that intruder, and then that is processed through this kind of supercomputer in the control room to identify the intruder. And so we wanted to stylize the thermal image as much as we could, and so kind of wanted to start up as like this low poly mesh, and then kind of like had these patterns and textures move around the head to kind of bring on the more defined color, the more saturated color in the thermal image. This thermal image kind of turns into a very dense wireframe. Use Cinema 4D to generate all the geometry in wireframes, and then use Plexus kind of around that wireframe to add some more kind of tech detail and more fabric to it. And as you can see, starting to bring in the skin through these same textures that are moving across the head. And here's a good look at that kind of transformation as you kind of see these skin textures forming in, and then the Plexus kind of brings the head. Lots of UI work done. Little machine vision and kind of techie maps and just tech. And here's a process reel showing some of the kind of tech isolated on its own, and this is all it is, just dots and lines and tons of shit moving around and polygons and geo and flutter and just lots of tech, lots of detail, wireframe. So this is a lot similar to the Tron work, I suppose, in its kind of tech vibe, but then very different in, Tron was three-dimensional holograms, whereas this is not quite there. Here's an example of those textures. He uses a lot of the mattes to bring on the skin and all the other detailing, and all the interfaces, and there's lots of stuff for this one. A little facial match complete, yo, on his eye. What's up? I get bored of that stuff though, so I always kind of want to go into the practical. So the last project that I want to talk about is the Pyrad. Working with the same kids, Michael Fullman, and basically the idea for this one was to, this is the branding for a design conference in Amsterdam. I was tasked to do that, and so wanted to kind of build a light void, if you will, kind of pyramid light void. I'm a big fan of Mr. Harder. I'm a big fan of Universal Everything. I'm a big fan of that Sprint campaign, that Sprint Dreaming campaign, and I think those three influences kind of drove this project, at least the kind of the inspiration for it. And just starting to build this giant triangle of light and controlling it with VJ software, same DP on hand to shoot it, and then had a still camera, a D900 on it as well. Here's kind of a montage video talking about it, or not talking about it, but just kind of showing the build and then showing the textures that came out of this, which are quite beautiful. You'll see them right here. I don't know how well this will play on Camtasia, but so this is it's the same kind of idea as Flash on the Beach, whereas you're taking graphic textures and you're running them through these panels to create the design. And so here's an example of the graphic textures, which then feed into these light panels, determine color, determine what lights are lit up where, according to the patterns you can see here, kind of cascading through. And all practical, and then used photography from this to drive the print campaign, which you'll see in a second. But at the foundation of it all is the build of a practical lighting sculpture, and then running graphic patterns through it to create light and color, form, and somewhat of a detail. This is spec, so this is paid for by me for about $1,000, and would have liked to have another set of these panels to actually make it 6 feet deep, and sequence those, but you can see by, it's not that big. It's really not. It's 3x3. Each panel is 3x3 put together. I want to show you the smoke stuff real quick, and then we'll fucking get on with it. But here's some smoke. Smoke running through it was real pretty because you get a real nice kind of Z depth in there to kind of feel the volume better, and that felt really good. And yeah, really trippy shit here. I like this thing a lot. It was a good call to do it practical. So here's some stills. These are some Nikon stills of the actual structure, kind of freeze frame on them. And yeah, here's some really nice little stills, and very pretty, very pretty. And here's a font for the print campaign designed by the master of type, Mr. Brian Gossett. Brian and I have been friends for over, almost a decade, and we collaborate on a lot of things together. He's an amazing typographer, amazing designer, and he made a beautiful, beautiful type lockup for this, and then kind of putting them together. There's the poster, the badges, the program cover, and yeah, so that's that. That's that project, and I think things to take away from that project are just the spirit of collaboration again, working with those lighting people that I met to kind of push me to do things, to discover new mediums, discover new techniques, new aesthetics. It's just a great way to kind of continually learn and stay inspired and stay dialed in is to collaborate and kind of take yourself out of your comfort zone, which is kind of why I showed you those 3 projects after Tron, because Tron was actually pretty comfortable, doing that style, kind of given my foundation. But then, kind of getting off and doing these things is good too, and working in the practical and building and working, with DPs and filming and. Lastly, I want to talk about op art. I love op art. I love making op art, and so these are some examples of that. Of just making really weird kind of moving graphic designs. Really, they kind of move on themselves, and kind of just been spacing out and doing these things for a while. And there's some kind of new stuff where I'm trying some new techniques, new styles, and kind of having this all of this stuff is kind of my print work these days. Is kind of doing this stuff. And nice thing is I do them in 3D, so I could render them any style. And I'm still, or render any resolution. I'm still kind of refining everything, but I really like it, and I'll continue to do it and make series and just kind of do it for the love and not for any reason, just to kind of do it. But wanted to look at this slide real quick and just kind of talk about originality. And this is how I feel. I feel that nothing is original. I feel that you should steal from anywhere that resonates with inspiration or fuels your imagination. Devour old films, new films, music, books, paintings, photographs, poems, dreams, random conversations, architecture, bridges, street signs, trees, clouds, bodies of water, light and shadows. Select only things to steal from that speak directly to your soul. If you do this, your work and theft will be authentic. Authenticity is invaluable. Originality is non-existent. And don't bother concealing your thievery. Celebrate it if you feel like it. In any case, always remember what Jean-Luc Godard said. It's not where you take things from, it's where you take them to. It's the worst accent. But I love this. I love this quote more than anything. And I just think that's it. I think that's it. You steal from things that speak directly to your soul, and you take them and you make them authentic. And that's what it's about. Like, that's what it's about, is taking the old and putting your flavor on it and reinventing it and just being inspired by others and reference. And so I'm showing you this slide because I was huge on Tumblr. I moved over to Pinterest now, but Tumblr is a great way to kind of get reference. I'm very, very, very dedicated in how I catalog my reference and keep it. I've moved over to Pinterest now, which is kind of what I think is the best way to manage reference out there right now. And you kind of it's just amazing. And the thing about Pinterest is the network of people that are also doing it is just so massive. And so you'll stumble across boards with thousands of pins on it on a particular subject, and it's just really a great source of inspiration and a great way to research projects when you're first starting out and doing your initial reference pulls, like I showed you in the Tron work. And a lot of the other work is that reference is everything. You just need to do your research, always look back on it, steal and borrow from what you need, put your own twist on it, put your own flavor into it, and that's just the way to be. That's just the way to be. Wanted to kind of show you that, like, for me personally as an artist, I like to kind of self-critique a little bit and kind of have my own website that's a nice forum for me to just critique and go back and kind of look at a body of work as a whole in chronological order, and then always try to keep on mixing it up and reinventing myself and doing different things and shooting and doing techie holographic work and live action work and interface work, and just kind of mixing it up as much as I can to kind of stay fresh and stay diverse, which is what I've been preaching this whole time. It's just it's a good way forward. Lastly, I would like to just say that to progress in life, you must give up the things you do not like. Give up the things that do not. I'm tired. It's like 2 in the morning. Give up doing the things that you can read it. It's a great quote, and I think it's all about doing things that you love to stay inspired, to be happy, and just remember that remember what things in VFX speak to you the loudest, and what makes you feel good and what you enjoy to do the most, and that's what you should do with yourself. And don't entirely do something that you feel is going to make you a comfortable living versus, like, as an artist, what speaks to you the loudest is going to drive you to do the best work. And and that's, I just think that's important, man. I think that's an important thing. And yeah, this is it, dude. I want to wish everyone well. Thanks for listening to me. I don't really know how long this was, but it was quite a rant, and it was a pleasure. And I'm good vibes. Here's some stuff. If you want to check out a website or my Twitter, I'm pretty down I'm down with Twitter, man. I like to tweet. I like to use it as a kind of curated news source or inspiration source. I follow a ton of artists and computer scientists and architects and photographers. It's a very, very great resource. Again, Facebook and Pinterest. And yeah, man, that's it. That's it. But again, thanks for listening, and rock on with your bad self.